Clayton. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm Tony Keymore, and this is BlogSpot. So tell me about your career. So you are basically, you are a race car driver and so much more as well, and you're based in the UK. So tell us like the very beginning, like kind of give us like a backstory to how you began in car racing in the first place.
Yeah, it's a bit of an unusual story, but it's referred to as Twitter to track, but always a fan of motorsport. And then in 2013, I tweeted a completely unrelated tweet about some pajama bottoms. And long story short, is ended up meeting a guy who had the matching slippers and a motorsport degree. We became friendly, and one day we were talking, and I said, "Oh, we should go racing," because he wanted to build a car and I wanted to race. But neither of us had any money, so I said I'll resolve that, and I set about raising the sponsorship to buy and build a car. So we built a car and went racing on a shoestring budget with luckily lots of support from social media, and yeah, the rest is history, if they say.
Yeah, that's amazing. Actually, that's a great story. So I suppose, I mean, you're saying like you're racing on a shoestring budget, but like what would it be? What would it cost to kind of get into racing in the first place for those that maybe I'd be interested in listening in getting into it?
Yeah, so I mean, what did we spend in the first year? About 6,000, probably less than 6,000 actually, but about £6,000 to buy the car and then build a car. So David Tavadi, who was the guy that had the motorsport degree, lived in Nottingham. I live in Bristol, so I was travelling up the 2.5 hours each way every other weekend to build a car. And then we entered the Volkswagen Audi Group Trophy at the time, and that was one of the lowest cost entry series. And then some of the costs around that around tyres, but we were quite fortunate in that we managed to get the tyres to last. And then when we did have some issues with tyres, we had some very generous people on Twitter that raised the funds to buy a set for us.
That's fantastic. So tell us about your ability to grow a network. Obviously, you seem to have it really nailed, as you're saying, like Twitter to track. So tell us like how you actually went about growing your network.
Yes, absolutely. So the key really for me was about building a longevity and ultimately adding value to people and brands to get them to come on board. I was a nobody, I'd never done any karting. For me, I wasn't a logical choice if you look at the sporting aspect for anyone to sponsor. So what I had to do was create a business proposal to them that rewarded loyalty, provided longevity, and ultimately added value. And in the early days, that was additional things like adding business services to get them to sponsor me. And it's that was what it was about, and building profile and introducing the network and connecting people. And that's really been the key to all of it, is building networks, connecting people, and ultimately adding value, because if we don't add value, then nobody sponsors anyone.
That's very true as well. And tell us then as well, like how you go about branding and marketing, because I mean, if you're building a network then, and you're obviously, trying to achieve then, to be able to race, how would you go about like your branding and marketing, I suppose, aspect of things?
Yeah, I mean, from that side of things, that I tend to look at things quite differently to others. The whole sticker on a car for motorsport has been the bugbear of me for many, many years, and many people do it, and some people still get good sponsorship from that for whatever reason. But in terms of marketing, it's really analyzing the channels that the brands that I'm working with are looking at, understanding what their objectives and goals are and where they're planning to go, and then how we align with that. I mean, I work with a company called Trigger Media based out in the US, who do a lot with augmented and mixed reality. So one of the things we're looking at the moment for next year is around image triggers. So making my car interactive. So, if a fan or someone views the car and in their trigger frame, and as an example, then there could be a game or a discount code to that brand. And it's really kind of trying to cross-pollinate and bring new engagement levels to audiences, and ultimately, greater returns for brands.
Fantastic. Wow. And I suppose like tell us as well, like what has been your best experience so far to date, like since you got into car racing?
Yeah, I'd probably say driving the Goodwood Festival of Speed in the old James Hunt car from Rush.
Wow.
Um, it was a strange one because must have been 2014, I think it was. I stood at the top of the Festival of Speed Hill and said, I'm going to drive this one day. And the people I was with all kind of laughed and just thought it was a bit of a humor. And then, within 2 years, I was there alongside, like Sir Gents and Button and people like that. It was a very surreal experience.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love those kind of stories, all right, when people just, put their mind to something and then achieve that goal. But how did you actually get there? What was like the journey then, like to kind of say one day I'm going to drive that car to actually then 2 years later being in that car?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say there was a plan, but there wasn't really. I mean, again, it goes back to a bit of a story, but I've been speaking with a supercar hire company probably about 18 months before, and then they rang me randomly on one Father's Day morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and woke me up and said, is there any chance you could help us out? One of our guys is phoned in sick. And that kind of started a relationship off with the supercar company that I'd been trying to get into. And then one day they sent a picture of the Lotus 59. And I was like, where is that? I need to see that. And they said, oh, it's opposite us. So they introduced me to the Arnold family who owned it. And they just migrated back across from Canada. And I said, oh, well, what's the story behind the car? And he said, obviously, we used it for Rush. And Michael's father had passed away. And I said, so what are you going to do with the car now then? And he said, well, I don't know. He always wanted it to go to Goodwood. So I said, okay, if I get it to Goodwood, the deal is that I drive. And he was like, yeah, absolutely, no problems. So I then made a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails to speak to Goodwood and the relevant people, and they decided they wanted the car there. So that was my ticket to drive at the Festival of Speed.
Fantastic. And what are your goals for, I suppose, the next couple of years for the future, pretty much?
I mean, it's probably cliche, but Le Mans is obviously every driver's dream. And that's certainly in my vision of where I'd like to go. It's a huge ask. And, last couple of years have been difficult to say the least. But, there's a good solid offering, I think, moving forward for brands, and I've got a great story. We spoke to a couple of the streaming channels who have intimated that if you get to Le Mans, we'd love to do a series on it. So that's certainly the aim, is to get to Le Mans.
That's amazing. And I suppose, like, what kind of advice would you offer to anybody that wants to get into car racing? Do you think that, it's sort of like, age relevant as well? I mean, do you think it's better off starting younger? Do you think you can kind of do it at any age, or what, like, where would you start if one wanted to get into car racing?
Yeah, I think, it's obviously better if you start earlier. I was very late coming into it in comparison to a lot of people. So it is better to start younger, but I think, my advice would always be, why does someone want to give you some money for you to go racing? Is the mindset you've got to have. Why is this brand or this person going to invest in me to go racing, and what am I going to deliver back? Because yes, there is people just sponsor them just because they want to, and they're family, friends, or whatever. But any serious investment and brand stuff, if you don't already have that network, then you've got to show them value as to why they're going to invest in you and what they're going to get back. So think outside the box. I think you've got to be different. There's a million and one people out there all saying, we'll put a sticker on a car for you to go racing, and I'll do some social media posts. And you've really got to look outside of that box and push the value that you can add, and why you're different, and why it makes sense for a CEO or a CMO to invest in your racing.
That is actually pretty solid advice, to be fair. That's, yeah, I mean, exactly. Why would somebody want to hand over their money to you? So yeah, that is definitely like a good mindset to have. So tell people where they can find you if they're looking to follow your career, find out more, or get in touch.
Yeah, so on my website, claytonkingman.com, on Twitter is at Clayton Kingman, and Instagram is clayton.kingman. So all the usual social channels. Generally, keep certainly Instagram is more prevalent than others, but I try and keep on top of all of them where I can. But again, you can always email me as well, clayton@claytonkingman.com.
Fantastic. Well, so Clayton, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time and everything else. And yeah, I'm gonna definitely start following you. And for anybody else as well, yeah, definitely check out all of his social media and website. I'll put the links in the show notes there too. So listen, thank you so much for joining me today, and hopefully we'll have you back again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers then. Take care. Bye for now.
Goodbye.